Hello, 你好. Welcome to Mandarin Mama Chit Chat by Mandarin Together, where two Taiwanese moms, Trista and Yao Yao, share their experiences in raising bilingual children, exploring identity, code switching, and embracing the joys and challenges of bilingual parenting. Come along with us on this exciting journey.
Hey guys. Oh my gosh, you guys are in here for a treat today. Thank you. Welcome back. We have a special guest today. Her name is Amy Danderfield. You guys, you're gonna love her. She provided so much value for us. She is a mom who homeschooled 4 children while running a photography business. And her kids are so fluent in Mandarin. One of her daughter, oldest one, she is 8. She can read Harry Potter in Mandarin, all right? But let's not compare ourselves or feel bad that we're not doing a good enough job. Really just sit back, relax, listen to what she has to say and offer, and you'll learn so much from her. She is amazing. I'm so thankful that she's here and so much to learn from her, and I hope she will come back again. All right, let's dive in. Hi, Amy. So glad you're here with us.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Okay, you are our first guest, so I am so excited and you're super special. Guys, you know Amy, she runs a business. She stay home with her kids. She's homeschool 4 of her kids. And drum roll, one of her kids, her oldest daughter, she's only 8, and she can read Harry freaking Potter. So that's a mic drop right there. It's crazy. She is the genius. So we're gonna dig in and ask Amy all the questions. I have a list of questions. We might go off a tangent, so we just sort of freestyle. So Amy, can you just introduce yourself, your background, and how you teach your kids Mandarin, and we'll go off from there.
Yeah, perfect. I love this. My name is Amy Danderfield, and I was born and raised in China, in Wuhan. Now everybody knows where that is. I came to US. I am in Arizona right now. I came for school, and I met my husband at school, and the rest is history. I have 4 kids. I am a documentary family photographer as well, so I run my business. I try to raise multilingual kids for sure. At the moment, we're focusing on Mandarin and English.
And your husband speaks Mandarin as well, and he is not Asian. He is Caucasian, and he is teacher, right? He's a Mandarin teacher, actually, right?
Yes. So my husband, he majored in Chinese when he went to college. And that's when he started, actually. He didn't have any previous exposure. And he majored in Chinese. He's fluent, and he now teaches Chinese at our local high school.
Has he ever studied abroad?
Oh, yes.
Another Taiwan. Okay.
Yeah, he's because of his major, so he actually had to go and study abroad, and we actually lived in China right after we got married for 2 years for him to finish his school over there.
Oh, gotcha. Nice. Wow. Okay. Yeah. Now that it's a requirement that you have to live abroad to, I guess, to be fluent in the language. But I think that definitely is a plus as well. But all right. So I know that Amy, you homeschool your kids. Can you tell us a little bit about how do you incorporate Chinese into your homeschooling curriculum? And I guess what gave you the idea of homeschooling 4 children? Because I have 2 children myself, 4 and 2, and I can't even imagine homeschooling them at the moment. So could you please kind of walk us through like how you do it? What's the everyday lesson look like in your household?
Yeah, absolutely. So, of course, I grew up in China. So a lot of times when I think about education or schooling is that you go to different classes, like one period and one subject, and you move on to the next, right? And then you sit at the desk all day long doing all the work. Now that I've done homeschooling for a couple of years now, I've realized that with homeschooling, you really look at education from a different angle. So what I'm trying to achieve is not just academic excellency for my kids. I'm trying to raise my kids as a whole person. So a lot of times I really focus my education on raising good human beings with life skills. And of course, with life skills, there are, subjects matters that, academic as well. But a lot of times when I approach school is really helping them learn how to learn. So that really shifts your mentality and how you structure your day totally. So a lot of times I don't really have periods of classes. We can learn anywhere we go at any time, right? And also I do want to point out that I only speak Chinese to my kids. And my oldest is 8, right? So I've only spoken to my kids. Doesn't matter where we go. That's the only language I use. My husband stayed with that as well until about maybe 2 years ago, because Chinese, is not his native language. And there are certain, books that he really loves, like Dr. Seuss, right? Like you just have to read it in English. And then so that's when he decided to start speaking English occasionally with our children. But mostly we only speak Chinese to our kids.
Wow.
So yeah, so with that kind of setup, most of the homeschool teaching is done in Chinese. So unless it's English, then I outsource it. I've outsourced English teaching to either family, friends, or other teachers. But other than English, everything else so far has been taught in Chinese.
Wow. My question would be, how long have you homeschooled them? Because I guess if you always homeschool, if you always homeschool them, right? They never really went to a, I guess, conventional school. How do they learn English then? I guess in that sense.
Yeah. So I have nothing against just traditional public school. And as you know, my husband teaches that one, right? The reason why I chose homeschool is really because I've been only speaking to my kids in Chinese since they were born. And by the time they're around preschool age and kindergarten age, I realized that I do want to continue to teach them Chinese and maintain this proficiency. However, even with the immersion programs we have here, my kids' language, Chinese language skill is way ahead of everyone else. So, if I send them to the school setting like that, they will be bored half of the day. And then the other skills like, math and other subjects, they're not that much in advance. So I can't just say, hey, we're going to jump a couple of grades. We can't do that. So there is going to be that imbalance. So for me, that was the main reason why I wanted to just homeschool. That way we can actually create more of a equal exposure. And we do have homeschool enrichment programs that my kids go to, and even preschools. So they're just part-time. So my older two, they go to this homeschooling enrichment program that is actually run by our public school system district. So they go twice a week. So they get that exposure as well, but it's just way less than their Chinese exposure. And of course, the rest of my husband's family, they don't speak a word in Chinese. Now they've learned a couple from my kids. But that's really the English exposure, just environment. We're in the US, right? So we don't really need to worry about,
English learning.
The language aspect in Chinese.
I'm not sure you have thought this far out just yet, but do you see an end, or when, I guess, how much longer, how long do you want to do this for? I mean, I just want to say it's incredible. It's very admirable, and I'm just blown away, but just kind of trying to see what your angles are, and then how much longer, or how long will you stick to this?
Yeah. So when I started, I was thinking that I will try and get my kids to about third grade, maybe. That's when they can meet that reading proficiency in Chinese. Usually it's around third grade. Like if you're in, in China or a native speaker, that's when you start to transition from learn to read to learn. So that's initially when I thought like I would just send them back into public school because they have enough of a foundation. And
Mm.
um but now, because now that I've changed my view of homeschooling, right, like the structure and all, I just feel like I might as well just keep going, like, because the total setup is very different now. And one thing that I did on purpose is actually, to some degree, hold back my kids on their English learning, um, because I want their Chinese reading level to be ahead of their English.
Mm.
Mostly because we have so many good books here in English we can't read. So it's kind of like, maybe, I don't know if it's unreasonable fear, but I just feel like once they can read in English way better than Chinese, then they don't want to read Chinese books anymore because it's hard to find those good books anyways. So I kind of like held them back so they can read more interesting books in Chinese,
Yeah.
and rather than more interesting books in English.
Right.
I have a question. So, homeschooling, they can speak, they can read. So, my first question, I want to know, how did you teach your daughter? Of course, she's not the normal kid. She's very smart. She's a genius. She can read Harry Potter in. So, I want to hear like little backstory about that. And I also want to know, when you're saying like, where did you find all the resources though, teaching them, the curriculum? Like, where did you find all the resources like math, science, history? Are they all Mandarin? Can you tell us about that?
Yeah. So, first question about how do you teach them to read? First of all, we have the foundation, right? We spoke to them, and especially with my oldest, like all throughout her first, maybe 1 year, first year, mostly she hears it's just Chinese. Everything happened in Chinese. I read books to her in Chinese. Even when I go to the library, you know, I get board books. They don't have words. I just make up my own story in Chinese and read to her in Chinese, right? So it doesn't have to be all like written in Chinese. You can translate, right? Or make up stories even. So my kids all have that exposure and immersion environment. So that really helps when they start to learn to read. The word that they hear is not foreign anymore. They know the word. It's just the association between the character and the actual words. So that's definitely making things a little easier. And there is the set of books that I really loved. It's called 我会自己读, I can read. So it's Disney stories. And what they did is that instead of creating a story and pull characters out of it, they said a vocabulary first. So like a vocabulary list of 50 characters for level 1. And then they only use those 50 characters to make up stories. And then they use it repeatedly. They have a set of 6 books. So that's what we have been using as the reading curriculum because it's story based. Like a good story does wonders. Kids love story. Everybody loves stories,
Yeah.
right? So that set of books was like used by 3 of my kids, actually. We just started my third kids on that book as well. So we have that set of books. And then I found this new set. I think it's done by the same publisher or author, but more of a different content. And this set is called 小羊上山. So it's the same concept. You set the vocabulary list first, and then you just use it repeatedly to make up really simple, easy stories. And then kids just keep reading it. And then that boosts their confidence immediately because they can read a book, right? That's like amazing when you get a kid to finish a book. They feel like, wow, I can read now,
Yeah.
even though they're very easy books, but they can read it. So that's how to teach them to read. And then I spent so much time just working on that before going anywhere with curriculum, because I feel like the subject matter, again, doesn't really matter. It's how to learn. And of course, different kids of mine have different learning pace. My oldest and my third has more of, like a desire to learn to read rather than my second. My second oldest, he loves to look at pictures and come up with stories. So there are different ways to like use the books, but overall that's my base. And then moving forward to school age now, I don't really officially start them on subjects until they're 6 or around kindergarten age, because I just feel like people learn from everywhere. Like, we don't have to sit down and trace, 1, 2, 3, 4. We can just count how many blueberries we eat, count how many bouts we eat, right? My kids love that. So, yeah, I don't start them with official curriculum until they're older. And then when I do start, I actually buy the Chinese textbook and math textbook from China and ship them over here. I don't follow the Chinese textbook just lesson by lesson, because there are content that my kids just cannot resonate with, and it's going to be really hard to teach. So for me, might as well just skip through that, and then go to the content that they can actually resonate more, or they feel more interested in. But math, I kind of follow through, and I use math textbook as also a reading test. They have to read the questions. So I help them, of course, but whenever I know that character, they should be able to read themselves, I ask them to read themselves. And then beyond that, English textbook is English curriculum, right? And then my kids love science, so we have a lot of science curriculum. They're in English, but we kind of learn together. So I'll read it, and then I'm like, oh, what does this word mean? How do we read it? Right? And then I just look it up and then tell them in Chinese, oh, this is so and so. And then, oh, let's learn how do you read it in English, and then read it together. And then the majority of the lesson happen in Chinese when I am teaching. Of course, when my kids get older, they will also switch to be more self-led, like self-study mode, rather than me always teaching. So when that happens, and then, whatever language is in, then they just read, and then they come to me with questions.
How old are your kids, like age differences wise?
Yeah, so I have 8, 6, 4, and 1.
Okay. So how would, I guess, like an everyday, because sometimes, like, the biggest question, not just like raising kids bilingual, right? It's just like homeschooling in general with different ages, right? How do you juggle between, so like when you are teaching them, how do you do that?
Yeah. So 2 of my kids go to school on one day, on a set of days, and then another kid of mine go to the opposite days. So when they're all at home, I've tried, and also this is just not like one like method and works for even all times within the same family. Like, I'm always tweaking, and that's the beauty of homeschooling, is that you can tweak, like you can change. So in the past, when they're all younger, I've done a lot of just group study, like, let's learn about science. And then my oldest will be writing about things. My second one will be drawing things, right? And then my third will just be doing random stuff. And then I have a baby nursing or just napping. But now that the younger 2 are more active, and then I need to spend more one-on-one time with them, so I kind of like put them in 2 different schedules, so I can actually focus on one person at a time. What I do is I try to get that quality time in first thing in the morning, because that, when they know that they have had that quality time with me. And then when I asked them to do some, just work on their own or even just play on their own, they're more willing, right? And then also first thing in the morning, everybody's brain is more, fresh. And then so I try to set a timer for an hour. That's my one-on-one time with one person. And then depending on their age, of course, and then I'll let them choose what they want to work on with me. And then we set a timer. So a lot of times, like, okay, 15 minutes, Chinese, whatever we get through, we get through. And because it's one-on-one, super efficient, we actually get a lot done. And if they have any issues, like if they didn't quite get one concept or something, especially happens in math, like sometimes more advanced, like they need to practice a couple more times, then we spend more time working on that. And I give them the option. Do you want to keep working on this till the 20-minute or you're done? And then either way is fine with me because I know like with that concentrated time, we already got a lot done. And then once the timer goes off for the hour, and then we switch to another child. And then the previous kid will go either do some sort of homework on their own, or if they're just not having a good day, it happens to the best of us, right? I just send them out to play in the backyard to, SPE. Or they have two of my kids, they play piano. So, or I'll be like, okay, just go practice piano, like do something that doesn't require my undivided attention. And then while I work with the other child. And then usually we're done by like noon, by lunchtime with all the study time. And then in the afternoon, sometimes we'll do group study still, like let's learn how to draw something, or let's do a science experiment when baby goes to take a nap.
So I'm curious, any of your children have resistance speaking Mandarin?
So all of my kids have gone through a phase. I think this is just universal. When they around 3, that's when they realize that, oh, okay, the rest of the world speaks this language, right? And then they will start to try and use it. So what I do is that I just play dumb. I know this sounds so weird, but I just play dumb. Like what? I don't tell them, hey, you have to speak in Chinese. I'm just like, I don't understand. What are you saying? Even though I do, right? I just pretend. And also this is also why like homeschool is great, because I have all the time in the world. I can spend that time to just keep saying what for 10 minutes, right? And because my kids need stuff and they want to connect with me, and they will eventually just like switch to Chinese or find a way to express themselves that I can understand, right? And that like just forces them to use Chinese with me. And then yeah, like when they get older, sometimes they will start to speak like English amongst themselves. I'm still trying to figure out where I want to draw that line, because I don't want to make them feel resentful ever. And my oldest has asked me this question, Mom, why do we read so many Chinese books when we're in the US? And I'm like, yeah, that's actually a really good question. So what do you think? Right. And we have a discussion about it. But overall, I just make it fun for the kids. And then like if they're speaking more English, and I try to figure out why. Like, are they trying to connect with us, or is it just that they don't know like how to say certain things in Chinese? And then I just incorporate those vocabulary and conversation another time to teach them, because kids absorb so quickly, right? In a very passive way, I teach them things instead of like teaching in the moment, like, hey, you have to speak Chinese. This is how you say it, right? I force them in a very passive way to use Chinese. And then eventually they need me. So they have to use Chinese.
So since we're talking about, I guess, resistance, right? And then like, why do we speak Mandarin, right? What's the purpose? What's the meaning? Then have they ever, I guess, what's a cultural identity, right? Have they, I guess, questioned, have doubts, have they asked you questions like this? And how did you respond, or how did you navigate that piece?
Yeah, of course. When it comes to language, of course, there's the identity associated with it and the culture and everything. So first of all, with my own experience, I grew up in China and now I'm a US citizen. So I myself have gone through the identity crisis, essentially, trying to figure out what it means. And honestly, I don't have an answer. Like, I don't think, this is my opinion, like, I don't think if you're born Chinese, you're always Chinese. If you're born in the US, you're always US. Maybe I'm just naive, but I just wish that we can all be global citizens, right? And then we foster the individual identity, who I am, right? I can take all the good stuff from all different cultures and make that my own. So that's my process. I'm still working through it. And for me, one language itself is a way for me to express things, to think through things. And certain things I actually feel more comfortable thinking in English and certain things in Chinese, just because certain things I've never been, using Chinese in the past to communicate my thoughts in, certain topics. And also I have my photography, right? I use photos, like photography is a visual language. So that's my way of going through my emotions, processing it, expressing it. So that's what I want my kids to be able to do. Language is the tool for them to figure it out themselves. I'm not going to go into, and it's really not my place to tell them what identity they should have. And I just need them to have the tool to be able to connect to the different parts that comes with their heritage, and they can decide down the road. So that's kind of my approach. And then when it comes to the questions, they because my kids are still very young. So my oldest was born in China, which makes things a little interesting. And my other kids were born here, but they just really don't have that concept of what country means, what culture means almost at all. Like, some of my kids think Arizona is a country, right? So I don't want to put too much input into their brain at this stage, who they are. It's more about, what do you think? Why do you like this? Do you like it? Why don't you like it? Like, and then just have an open, transparent conversation ongoing, because I just feel like down the road, when they're older, who knows what the world will look like, right? So that's kind of my approach.
Yeah, I can relate because Krista and I both from Taiwan, and we moved here when we were in middle school. So I can understand that identity. And I love your approach, Amy. I love how you just have them decide, ask them questions. Because now my daughter, she is 10, almost 11, and she has a lot of resistance speaking Mandarin because she says she gets stuck and it just flows better. But I think I love your approach, because for me, every time, and she hates it when I say this. I'm like, speak Mandarin, 讲中文, 讲中文. And she hates that. She gets, really angry. I think I just need to do it passively. I need to think of ways I can do it, like make it fun. And I love how you make it so fun to learn at home, like counting blueberries is a math class. I think just really to make it fun and let them think.
Yeah, it has to be fun. We don't like, especially when we're little. If it's not fun, we're not going to do it. Even as adults, unless we have to, right? Nobody wants to do boring stuff. So I have to make it fun. For us, we don't usually let our kids watch TV, which is also very not normal. But whenever we do watch something, listen to something, it's always in Chinese. So when we're in the car, they listen to Peppa Pig in Chinese, but on audio. We don't watch the visual of it, but they listen to Chinese stuff. When we do watch movies, it's in Chinese. So if they want fun stuff, then they have to learn Chinese to be able to enjoy it. So it's not like, they still get exposure to the rest of, the English stuff, but it's more fun stuff happening in Chinese than English. And also for any language, because I try to learn other languages too. If you don't use it, you'll lose it, right? Mm-hmm. That's also the same thing. Like, even with Chinese, I don't write a lot anymore, and then I forget how to write things, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like Then you ask the question, do I really need to write that much now? That's also a question a lot of people are thinking about. Okay, how much writing the child needs to do? Well, moving on, everybody's texting, everybody's typing. Do we really need them to spend so much time like sitting there and tracing and writing? I don't know. Maybe I'll regret on this, but right at this moment for kids here in the US, I just feel like I'm just going to make sure that they can read and then they can type. And that can save actually a lot of time. And then they can actually spend that time to use it. They can write, text grandparents. They can go to a Chinese restaurant and actually talk to people in Chinese rather than just sitting there and tracing, how to write Chinese. So they have to find a way to use it too. And we find ways to incorporate that.
You're so dedicated.
Yeah, for sure. I love that you share that piece because as a Mandarin teacher, I struggle with that too. And now I've kind of come to the same, I guess, compromise or conclusion, whatever. Now I have my students focus on character recognition and we type nowadays because the same as you write, when you write, it takes so much time. But nowadays people don't really write anymore. Even me personally, I don't write. Like I don't even write English. People just don't handwrite things anymore. So
Yeah.
I love that we kind of like, I don't know, like end up have the same, I guess, conclusion or landed on the same idea.
So I have another
Isn't
question for
she
you, Amy. Do you have
amazing?
any advice for
personally learned so
non-fluent
much from Amy.
speakers that
She
how
is
do they
amazing. She's so
incorporate
positive,
Mandarin in their daily life?
encouraging,
On the previous
and
episode,
I
I
just know
encourage
she's gonna
everyone.
raise four
We all have
amazing
different
humans.
goals.
So
Some people, they want their kids to read and
I
write
hope you
in
learned a
Mandarin.
lot from
Some is
Amy
like, okay,
too.
if you can listen to
I'm gonna
understand me,
link
I'm
all
happy.
Amy's
For some, you
information,
can converse a
email,
little bit. You can
website,
speak to grandma,
social
grandpa.
media in
I'm
our show
happy.
notes.
So it
So
just
please
depends
go
on
support
where
her. If you like
everybody
her
wants to
episodes,
go,
please
right?
follow
And
us
also your capability
and
too,
leave
your
a
level,
review.
your speaking
We will
level, right? Your
bring
level, if
on
you can
more
read, like
guests,
I can
just like
read
Amy, to
and
provide
write,
you
so
guys
I can
immense
probably read a lot of
value, and
Mandarin
we are
books to my
learning
kids.
alongside
But
with
some
you
people
guys
maybe they
too.
can't.
It's
So for
just
me, it's
such an
80%.
exciting journey.
80% of the time I can speak Mandarin. I think that's
All
really
right,
good.
until the next time,
I'm doing a good job.
bye.
So if someone not so fluent, if they can just try 10%, 20%, or I was sharing last episode, even though if you're like not fluent, if you just start from, hey, good morning, how's your day? Or good night, even just like few phrases that you can add in your daily life. I think that will kind of help. Like, do you have any suggestions or idea for us, Amy?
Yeah, I think really the key is really holding on to your why and question it, like in the positive way. Dig a little deeper. Why do you really need your kids to learn Chinese? Especially if you yourself are not fluent, right? Like not in a judgmental way, but really like why does your kid need to learn that, right? My husband actually speaks Spanish as well, a fluent Spanish. He tried to learn Russian, right? So there's so many languages out there. I always say I want to learn Spanish and it would be great for my kids to know Spanish. And we live in a neighborhood that has a lot of Spanish speaking neighbors. But at the moment, it just, we don't have the time. We don't have the energy to add that one more in to reach that level of proficiency. So I have to ask myself, do I really have to put my kids through this, right? We're learning something. We're also working on piano. Piano is a, audio language. That's also language, right? Do we need another thing? If you're not fluent, just like I'm not fluent in piano, but I want my kids to be, and that's because I think it gives them another tool to really experience the world in a different way, to express them. Then it's the same concept with language. If you're just trying to help your kids to be able to have that tool to use, then encourage your kids to use it. Find a way to use it. And then, of course, it obviously works better if you're learning it with your kids. So if you're not fluent, and spend a little effort, you can still position yourself. Like that's how I do it. Like I position myself not as the expert. I'm like, hey, you're better than me. Can you teach me? Like I want to learn. Can you teach me? Right? That will motivate the kids very easily, quickly. And another thing is that there are so many resources out there. Like I would much rather read to my kids myself, but I've got 4 kids with school and piano and all that stuff, right? I just can't sit there read all day long as much as I wish I could. So you can have podcasts. My kids love to listen to podcasts that are just someone else reading Chinese stories, essentially, and they get updated like every week. They look forward to that so much. And then we have this thing called Yodel Player. I'm not affiliated with them, but I really love it so much because you can make your own cards and you just have to find resources, or you find a downtime, or find someone in your circle, a friend who does speak fluent Chinese, and record a couple of stories for you and load it onto that card and they can listen to it. You can go to local, like restaurants and just lean in, leverage on the resource you have around you. And really, you have to know why your kids are learning it. If they're learning it to use it, then they have to use it. And then they will be motivated. Like for me, my kids are learning it so they can communicate and stay connected with my family. We FaceTime my family almost daily, which is also a perk from homeschooling because we have the time. But that's also part of the learning. So if you're not fluent, but you have grandparents, if you really want, if you say you want to have your kids learn to connect with their family and heritage, then do it. Right? Talk to the grandparents. And of course, with the pandemic, it's become a little harder to travel. In the past couple of years, we have not been able to go back to China. But in the past, before the pandemic, we were able to either go back or have my parents come visit every other year. So we take turns. And then when you're in that environment and you're able to be really motivated to learn and to use it.
Yeah, that's the best way to learn. Just immerse them in that environment. Like when I take my kids back to Taiwan, that's when they pick out the most words because they have no choice. They want to talk to the grandparents, the auntie, the uncle, their cousins, second cousins, and they just have to squeeze everything they have to speak to them, to communicate with them.
Yeah.
So
we have the technology now. Like you don't it still does not compare to being in, the environment yourself. But still, like you can FaceTime, you can talk without having to go all the time.
I really love that Amy, you can mention the reason why, right? Because you make a connection such as if that's the reason why, if the reason you want the kids to learn Mandarin is because of heritage, the connection with the family, grandparents, then do it, right? That it's like such a strong reminder to me, actually, because I mean, that's a big part of why for me that I want my kids to connect with my side of the family, my heritage, my culture. That's another very important to me. But I would have to admit, we haven't really been FaceTiming or talking, like video chatting with my parents as much as I would like. So that is, that's a powerful reminder for sure.
Yeah, that's also something I do. Like when my kids start to speak more and more English, I'm like, instead of trying to like drill in more homework, I'm just like, okay, let's watch more Chinese movies. And then that also gives you talking points to talk about with the rest of the Chinese family, right? And then just do something and then initiate some sort of connective, like collaborative thing. My parents would read to my kids, chapter books through FaceTime. And then my kids want to know like what happens next in that story, right? So we have to FaceTime my parents. And then so that's like really just incorporate everything into how to use the language more in a more fun way.
Right. So it sounds like in this journey, you are there alongside with your kids, and you are also a learner yourself too. Not coming from I am the mom, I am the teacher, top down. That's really admirable and it's really humbling, because sometimes I think it's easily for us to, this is what I want to reach there. And when any obstacles along the way, I need to remove them or just like make me even more more impatient or frustrated because I'm seeing my goals here, there, but I'm right here. But sometimes it's a journey, it's the process, right? And when obstacle comes,
Mhm.
that could be a new opportunity, or it's not for us parents to learn. Also, is like m- open up different, I guess, aspects or perspective for the kids as well. And that's great. Yeah. Thanks for
Yeah,
sharing.
because
Yeah, because I've realized that like eventually our kids are an individual. They have to make their choices. And also I really appreciate what my parents have done for me because I have a degree, I have a master's degree in electrical engineering, but I'm not using it at all. Um so I am totally a rebel. Like I chose a very different path. I'm a photographer now and you know, um so essentially what I learned in school, you can look at it in a way that, hey, that we're all a waste. Or I went through, like the process to learn how to learn, right? And now I can learn whatever I want to learn. So eventually my kids, who knows, maybe they'll go live in some part of the world that will not be speaking either English or Chinese. And they
yeah.
will have to learn a different language. So I don't want to get hung up on the specific, like, oh, Chinese. Yeah, like, yeah, we were born in Chinese, but in China, but what does that really mean, right? They have to decide.
Yeah, I think the process is the most important, the relationship you're building with your kids. And I think that's the way to go to learn alongside with them. Or else we can just, here's all the worksheet, here's Chinese school, and be done with it. I mean, I would like that too. It's easy, right? But I feel like they will rebel. They don't want to do it. And now I really see why you're so dedicated, Amy, because you know your why so strongly. Because I admit I'm guilty at this too. And I see my friends and my husband, they came here really young, and sometimes you get frustrated and you just give up. It's just easy, okay? Like we can all speak English, right? And then if I'll speak Mandarin to them and they're just speaking Mandarin back, sometimes like people just say, you know what, we'll just give up. Let's just speak English from now on. And once you give up, it's really hard to pick back up. But just hearing from your story, Amy, like, my gosh, watching movies, podcasts, you're doing everything you can because you have a strong why, right? That's
Mhm.
why it kept you really going.
Yep.
Yeah.
And also, really, like a lot of times, this is not just with Mandarin learning, it's raising kids in general. Like, it's always easy to find an easy way out for the
Yeah.
short term results. But sometimes in the long run, like it's worth it. It really is worth it. For me, like, yeah, you feel like if you hear how much I do like on a daily basis, like you might feel like, whoa, that's a lot. But it all comes natural when you establish that like habit. Just like you said, if you like it's really hard to break a habit and form a new one. But once you've established it, it's just on autopilot, right? There are still things that you need to change, like occasionally here and there, but overall, it's just on autopilot, and it becomes easier. And for me, I don't have to send my kids to a weekend, Chinese
Yeah.
school, and that's like 2 days. Like I get
Mhm.
to do fun things with them in Chinese.
Yeah.
So, and so that's for sure. And also, I've also realized that um as parents it's okay to not to be the authority on everything because we don't know everything. A lot of times we think we know the best, but honestly we don't. So it's actually a lot better for the kids to be like, hey, look, I am better than my parents. And then also like it really helps when like when I feel like I've gone through this as well when I was trying to learn something, and I just feel like my parents don't understand how hard this is for me. But if I see my parents trying to learn something with me, and then at least I feel like, okay, they understand me, and that will motivate them as well. So as the parent, like I try to learn Spanish. I try to learn piano with them. I'm way behind them, but they see my efforts and they want to one up me. They don't want to fall behind me. And that motivates them too.
Yeah, when you speaking about habits earlier, and I spoken about that few episodes before, because I read the Atomic Habit from James Clear about habits. I know it's nothing regards with language, but I feel like that's how we build our habits, because it's hard to build a habit in the beginning. But I think in the book it says it takes 90 days. Let's say if you say good morning every day in Mandarin, it's going to form that habit, and then just going to get easier. Maybe you add something on, what do you want for breakfast? And just keep adding out, start small. Because I feel like, and Tristan and I talked about this, sometimes we just have this huge goal. You need to be reading at this level at this age or in this time. And then when it doesn't meet, we don't meet that expectation. And we just say, oh, okay, this is too hard. And we give up. Sometimes we just give up way too soon. So I think it's better to start small and build that habit and just baby step it.
Yeah. Yep. That's how babies learn, right? That's why it's called baby steps. And babies are the best at learning languages.
Yeah. Okay, Amy, did I miss anything you want to share with us? I mean, you have provided so much value. Oh my gosh, you need to come back on again.
I am, you can tell, like, I am really passionate about learning a language, and I'm just fascinated. I think we covered a lot, and if anyone has any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to connect and answer any questions as well. But overall, I just think that for parents whose kids are still young, like, start right now. It's still okay. A lot of times people feel like, oh, I missed the first year. Now I'm doomed. No, like, it's okay. My husband, he started when he was in college. So you can do it if you really want to. So again, going back to why, like, how much you want it, right? It's never too late to start. And kids are resilient. Don't worry. Like, when you change a habit, they will be fine. Initially, they might resist, but just make sure it's fun and building that connection, and then you'll be able to do it.
Yeah, I cannot agree more. Like, you're so encouraging, and just keep going and don't give up. So, Amy, can you tell us where we can find you? I'm going to link it in the show notes, but maybe you can share your, like, you hang out at Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Where can we go find you and support you?
Yeah, I am mostly hanging out in my email, actually. I'm also the alt one. So you can find me on my website, amydangerfield.com. And I am on Instagram, but it's under my photography account. It's Amy Dangerfield Photography. I'm just not super fan of social media these days, because I would much rather have more, one-on-one connections rather than shouting into the void. But yeah, welcome to shoot me an email or send me a DM on Instagram.
Awesome. Thank you for coming on. Spend your valuable time here with us. Thank you. And
Of course.
please come back again.
Yes.
Will do.
A lot of
words
of wisdom. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you for having me again.
Okay, isn't Amy amazing? Did you learn a lot from her? I personally learned a ton from her. She is just a gem, okay? She's so positive. Her energy is just amazing. She's calm, she's positive, and she's encouraging. And I already know she's gonna raise 4 amazing humans there. They're so lucky to have her. But I want to let you guys know and remember, do not compare yourself to Amy. We often do that, right? Like, oh my gosh, her kids can read Harry Potter? What the heck am I doing? I'm fluent in Mandarin too, or I'm kind of fluent, or I have all these resources and my kids can read anything. So let's not do it. Let's not do that. Let's not do that. That's just a mom guilt creeping up. And I know we all do that a lot. We just, hey, stay in the course and do what we can. All right? We are all in this journey together, but we're on different paths. If you like our podcast, please make sure you leave a review. I will link everything in the show notes, Amy's information, our flashcards that you can download, our social media and email. Please don't hesitate to contact us if you need to, all right? We're going to have a lot of more guests coming on just like Amy. And that's going to provide immense value for you guys. So make sure you subscribe and follow us. See you next time.